Emma Thompson stood at the busy airport security line, her hands shaking as she held her boarding pass. The paper felt damp from her nervous sweat, after working in another country for 5 years. She was finally coming home to take care of her sick mother. The phone call from her sister last week still echoed in her mind. "Mum's getting worse, Emma. She keeps asking for you. The new airport security rules in 2025 seem so complicated." There were signs everywhere about new liquid limits, special checks for electronics, and fingerprint scanners that looked like something from a science fiction movie. Emma had always been nervous about flying, and now, with her mother's illness weighing on her mind, every new rule felt like a mountain to climb. She watched the people in front of her. A businessman in an expensive suit looked annoyed as he had to remove his laptop and tablet separately. A young mother struggled to manage her crying baby while organizing her bags according to the new rules. Everyone seemed to know what they were doing except Emma. Her heart beat faster as the line moved forward. She had packed her bag 3 times the night before, trying to follow the new guidelines she had read online. But now, standing here, she felt completely lost. What if she had packed something wrong? What if the security officers thought she was suspicious? What if she missed her flight and couldn't get to her mother in time? Emma pulled out her phone and read the airline's email again. All passengers must present liquids in containers no larger than 50 milliliters, placed in a clear bag. All electronic devices larger than a phone must be removed from bags and placed in separate bins for screening. Biometric scanning is now mandatory for all travelers. The words seemed to blur together. She felt dizzy and realized she had been holding her breath. Round her, the airport noise seemed to get louder. Announcements echoed through the terminal. Children cried. People talked loudly on their phones. The wheels of suitcases rolled across the floor like thunder. When Emma reached the front of the line, a kind security officer named James noticed her worried face. He was older than the other officers, with grey hair and gentle eyes that reminded her of her father. His uniform was neat and clean, and he wore a small badge that said Customer Service Excellence. "First time with the new rules?" James asked, gently. His voice was calm and patient. Not rushed like she expected. "Don't worry. I'll help you through each step." Emma nodded, not trusting her voice. She felt like she might cry. And that embarrassed her. She was a grown woman, a successful professional who had lived independently in a foreign country for 5 years. But right now, she felt like a scared child. "Let's start with your bag," James said, pointing to the bins. "Put it in here, and take out any electronics bigger than your phone. Don't worry about being perfect. We'll figure it out together." Emma's hands were still shaking as she lifted her laptop out of her bag. It was heavier than she remembered, and she almost dropped it. James steadied her elbow with a gentle touch. "Take your time," he said. "There's no rush. Your mother raised a good daughter. I can tell. She'll be so happy to see you." Emma looked up at him, surprised. "How did you know?" James smiled. "I've been doing this job for 20 years. I can see when someone is traveling for love. Not just business. The way you're holding that boarding pass. Like it's the most important thing in the world. That's how people hold tickets when they're going home to family." His warm smile made Emma feel a little better. Maybe this journey wouldn't be so scary after all. She took a deep breath and tried to relax her shoulders round her. The airport noise seemed to quiet down a little. The other passengers didn't look as intimidating anymore. They were just people, like her, trying to get somewhere important. "Now," James said, "let's talk about these fingerprint scanners. They look scary, but they're actually very simple. Just place your thumb here, wait for the green light, and you're done. It's helping us keep everyone safe. including you and your mum. Emma placed her thumb on the scanner. The green light appeared, and she felt a small sense of accomplishment. One step down, many more to go, but with James there to help, she felt like she could handle whatever came next. "See," James said, "you're doing great. Your mum is going to be so proud when she hears about how brave you were today." Emma smiled for the first time since entering the airport. Maybe he was right. Maybe this was just the beginning of finding her strength again. After passing through the first security checkpoint with James's help, Emma found herself in another waiting area. The relief she felt was short-lived as she saw more lines ahead. But this time, she noticed she wasn't the only one struggling with the new rules. An elderly lady stood nearby. Looking lost and confused, she had silver hair tied in a neat bun, and wore a flowered dress that reminded Emma of her grandmother. The woman carried an old-fashioned handbag and a small rolling suitcase that looked like it had traveled many miles. Her eyes moved from one digital screen to another, and Emma could see the worry growing on her face. "I don't understand these machines," the elderly lady whispered to Emma. "Everything is so different now. Last time I flew, we just walked through a metal detector. Now there are computers and screens everywhere." Emma looked at the woman's boarding pass, which was slightly crumpled from being held too tightly. The name read Margaret Williams. Her destination was the same city as Emma's connecting flight. "The rules have changed a lot," Emma said softly. "I'm Emma. I was confused too, but a kind officer helped me. Maybe I can help you." Margaret's face lit up with relief. "Oh, would you?" "I'm Margaret. I'm going to see my grandchildren for the first time in 3 years. My son finally saved enough money to buy me a ticket. But I'm so nervous about all this new technology." Without thinking twice, Emma stepped forward to help. She remembered how James had been patient with her, and she wanted to pass that kindness on. "Don't worry, Margaret. We'll figure it out together." Emma guided Margaret to the next checkpoint. There were more electronic scanners and bins to navigate. Margaret's hands trembled as she tried to remove her small tablet from her bag. The device was old and heavy, and she struggled to lift it. "Here, let me help," Emma said, gently taking the tablet. "These machines look scary, but they're actually quite simple once you know what to do." Emma showed Margaret how to place her items in the bins. She explained each step in simple words, the same way James had done for her. Margaret listened carefully, nodding and asking questions. "Why do they need to scan everything so carefully?" Margaret asked. "It's to keep everyone safe," Emma explained. "They want to make sure no dangerous items get on the plane. It protects us and our families." When they reached the fingerprint scanner, Margaret hesitated. "I've never used one of these before. What if it doesn't work? What if there's something wrong with my fingerprints?" Emma smiled. "There's nothing wrong with your fingerprints. Just place your thumb here. Like this, the machine will do the rest." Margaret pressed her thumb to the scanner. At first, nothing happened. Then the screen showed a red light. Margaret looked panicked. "It's okay," Emma said quickly. "Sometimes it takes a few tries. Just clean your thumb on your dress and try again." The second time, the green light appeared. Margaret's face broke into a huge smile. "I did it. Actually did it." Emma felt a warm feeling in her chest. Helping Margaret made her forget about her own worries for a moment. "You did great. You're braver than you think." As they collected their belongings, Margaret struggled to organize everything back into her bag. Emma helped her fold her clothes neatly and arrange her items so they would fit properly. "Thank you, dear," Margaret said, her eyes shining with tears. "You're like an angel. I don't know what I would have done without you." Emma felt her heart warm. "It's nothing. We all need help sometimes." As they walked through the security area together, Emma realized something important. Helping someone else made her own worries feel smaller. All morning, she had been thinking about her sick mother and feeling scared about the journey ahead. But now, focusing on Margaret's needs, she felt stronger and more confident. They sat down in the waiting area and compared their boarding passes. Emma couldn't believe it when she saw Margaret's ticket. "We're on the same connecting flight," Emma said excitedly. "Gate B12, departing at 3:30. Margaret clapped her hands together. "What are the chances? It must be meant to be. I won't have to worry about finding my next gate alone." Emma smiled. "And I won't have to worry about sitting by myself on the plane. We can keep each other company." For the first time since leaving her apartment that morning, Emma didn't feel alone. She had started the day thinking only about her own problems and fears, but meeting Margaret had shown her something valuable. When people help each other, everyone becomes stronger. Margaret reached over and patted Emma's hand. "You know, dear, I think we're both going to be just fine. Sometimes the best part of a journey is the people you meet along the way." Emma nodded, feeling grateful. Maybe her mother was right when she used to say that everything happens for a reason. Meeting Margaret felt like a gift. Emma and Margaret had just settled into their seats near gate B12 when the announcement came. Over the loudspeaker, "Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the inconvenience, but due to a computer system failure, all flights are currently delayed. We are working to resolve the issue as quickly as possible." A collective groan rose from the waiting area. Emma looked at her watch. It was already 2:45, and their flight was supposed to board in 15 minutes. Margaret squeezed her hand nervously. "How long do you think we'll be stuck here?" Margaret asked. Emma shook her head. "I don't know. These computer problems can take hours to fix. Round them, other passengers were checking their phones and calling their families. A businessman in a wrinkled suit was pacing back and forth, talking loudly on his phone about missing an important meeting. A young mother was trying to calm her crying baby while her toddler ran around the chairs. An elderly man sat alone, staring at his boarding pass with a worried expression. At first, people looked frustrated and tired. The atmosphere in the waiting area grew heavy with disappointment and anxiety. Emma felt her own stress returning. What if they missed their connection? What if she couldn't get to her mother today? But then something beautiful happened. A young man in military uniform stood up and walked over to the crying baby. He had short brown hair and kind eyes, and he wore his uniform with pride. "May I?" he asked the mother, holding out his hands toward the baby. The mother, looking exhausted, nodded gratefully. The young soldier took the baby and began walking around the gate area, gently bouncing and making soft sounds. Within minutes, the baby had stopped crying and was giggling at the soldiers' funny faces. "Thank you so much," the mother said. "I'm at my wit's end. We've been traveling for 10 hours already." "No problem," the young man replied. "I'm Tom. I'm coming home from military service overseas. I've missed babies. They don't have many where I've been." Emma watched as Tom's simple act of kindness seemed to change the mood in the waiting area. People started looking at each other instead of just at their phones. Margaret stood up and walked over to the young mother. "Would you like some crackers for your little one?" Margaret asked, pulling a small package from her purse. "I always carry snacks." "Old habit from raising 5 children," the mother smiled. "That's so kind of you. I'm Lucy, and this is my husband David. We're supposed to be getting married tomorrow, but with these delays..." David a tall man with glasses and a nervous expression. Looked up from his phone. The wedding is at 2 p.m. tomorrow. All our family is already there. If we don't make it tonight, we'll have to postpone everything. Tom handed the baby back to Lucy. Where's your wedding? Chicago. David replied, Same place I'm going. Tom said, I'm sure we'll make it. These computer problems usually get fixed pretty quickly. Emma noticed that more people were joining the conversation. The businessman who had been pacing earlier introduced himself as Robert. He had stopped making angry phone calls and was now sitting with the group. I'm trying to get to my brother's house, Robert said quietly. We haven't spoken in 3 years. I said some terrible things during a business disagreement. I finally decided to swallow my pride and apologize. But now you're worried the delay is a sign you shouldn't go. Margaret asked gently. Robert nodded. Maybe it's the universe telling me it's too late to fix things. Or maybe, Emma said, surprising herself by speaking up. It's giving you more time to think about what you want to say to him. More passengers began joining their informal circle. An elderly man named William shared that he was visiting his daughter after her divorce. A college student named Sophie was going home because her dog was sick. A retired teacher named Helen was moving to live near her grandchildren. Instead of being angry about the delays, everyone began helping each other. Tom shared his phone charger with David, whose phone had died. Lucy and David bought coffee for Margaret and William. Robert offered to pay for Sophie's lunch when she mentioned she had spent all her money on the plane ticket. Emma found herself listening to everyone's stories and sharing her own. She told them about her mother's illness and how nervous she had been about the new airport. Security rules. To her surprise, talking about her fears made them feel smaller. You know what's funny? Emma said to the group. This morning, those new security rules seemed like such a big problem. But now, after meeting all of you, I realize they're just part of the journey. The real important thing is that we're all here, helping each other. Margaret nodded. Sometimes the best things happen when our plans get interrupted. The new security rules that had seemed so difficult earlier became a reason for people to come together and support on. Another, they had all struggled through the same confusing process, and now they were all stuck in the same situation. It created a bond between strangers that wouldn't have existed otherwise. After 3 hours of waiting, the computer system finally came back online. The announcement echoed through the terminal. Flight 247 to Chicago is now ready for boarding. We apologize for the delay and thank you for your patience. Emma felt a mix of relief and sadness as she gathered her belongings. She had grown attached to the group of strangers who had become friends during the long wait. Margaret packed her small bag slowly, and Emma could see she was feeling the same way. I'm going to miss you all, Lucy said, holding her baby close. This delay turned out to be a blessing in disguise. Tom stood up and stretched. We should exchange phone numbers. I'd love to hear about your wedding. Lucy and David and Robert. I want to know how things go with your brother. Everyone agreed, and quickly shared their contact information. Emma felt warm inside as she typed the numbers into her phone. She had started the day alone and scared. But now she had new friends who cared about her journey. As they walked toward the gate, Emma noticed a familiar face. James, the security officer who had helped her earlier, was standing near the boarding area. He was no longer at his security checkpoint, but was wearing a different badge that said customer service. James, Emma called out, walking over to him. What are you doing here? James smiled when he saw her. Emma, I was moved to help with the flight delays when the computer system went down. They needed extra staff to help passengers with rebooking and gate changes. How are you feeling? Less nervous than this morning? Emma looked back at her new friends, who were saying their final goodbyes before boarding. Margaret was hugging Tom like he was her own grandson. Lucy and David were thanking Robert for buying them lunch. Everyone was smiling despite the long delay. You know what? Emma said to James. I feel completely different. This morning I was so scared of everything. The new rules, the machines, flying alone. But now I feel stronger. I guess. James nodded knowingly. That's what I love to see, you know. I've been working at this airport for 20 years. I've seen all kinds of changes, new rules, new technology, new security measures. Some passengers get angry about every change, but others, like you, learn to adapt and grow. Emma thought about the fingerprint scanners and liquid restrictions that had seemed so overwhelming that morning. The new security measures don't seem so scary anymore. I understand now that they're there to protect us. Exactly. James said, every rule we have, every check we do. It's all about getting people home safely to their families. That's what matters most. Emma watched as Margaret struggled with her boarding pass at the gate. Without hesitation, she walked over to help her elderly friend scan the barcode. The gate agent smiled and thanked them both. You know, James told Emma when she returned, helping passengers like you reminds me why I love my job. We are all just trying to get home safely to the people we love. Emma felt tears in her eyes, but they were good tears. I was so focused on my own problems this morning. I was only thinking about my sick mother and how scared I was. But today I learned that when you help other people, you help yourself too. The boarding line moved slowly, giving Emma time to reflect on her day. She had met Margaret, who taught her that age doesn't matter when you're brave enough to travel for love. She had met Tom, who showed her that military service means caring for others even when you're far from home. She had met Lucy and David, who proved that love finds a way even when plans go wrong. She had met Robert, who reminded her that it's never too late to fix broken relationships. James walked with her as she got in line to board. You seem like a different person than the scared woman I met this morning, he observed. Emma smiled. I feel like a different person. I thought this journey would be about getting through difficult rules and scary procedures. But it turned out to be about discovering that most people are good and kind when you give them a chance. As she handed her boarding pass to the gate agent, Emma realized something important. The new security measures had actually brought people together instead of keeping them apart. Everyone had struggled with the same challenges, and that shared experience had created connections that wouldn't have existed otherwise. Sometimes the most meaningful journeys require extra steps, Emma said to James as she prepared to walk down the jet bridge, and that's okay when you have good people walking beside you. James gave her a final encouraging smile. Your mother is going to be so proud of you. Have a safe flight. Emma. As Emma walked toward the plane, she felt ready for whatever came next. She was no longer the scared, nervous woman who had arrived at the airport that morning. She was someone who had learned to help others and accept help in return. The plane touched down smoothly at Chicago O'Hare Airport just after midnight. Emma looked out the small window and saw the city lights twinkling in the darkness. Her heart began to race, but this time it wasn't from fear or nervousness. It was from excitement and anticipation. As the plane taxied to the gate, Emma felt Margaret's hand squeeze hers. We made it, dear, Margaret whispered. We're both home. Emma smiled and squeezed back. Yes, we are, and we did it together. The passengers began to stand and collect their belongings. Emma helped Margaret with her small bag, just as she had done all day. Tom, who had been sitting a few rows behind them, came forward to help both women with their carry-on luggage. "Ladies, first," Tom said with a grin. "After all we've been through today, I think we deserve VIP treatment." As they walked through the jet bridge, Emma's phone buzzed with a text message from her sister. "Mum is waiting for you at baggage claim. She's doing much better today. The doctors say her condition is improving, not getting worse like we thought. She's been talking about you all day." Emma stopped walking and read the message twice. Her mother was getting better. All this time, she had been preparing herself for the worst news. She had imagined her mother weak and sick, maybe even dying. But her mother was improving. "Good news?" Margaret asked. Noticing Emma's expression. "The best news," Emma replied, showing her the message. "My mother is getting better." Margaret's eyes filled with tears of joy. "Oh, Emma, that's wonderful. See, I told you everything would work out fine." When they reached the baggage claim area, Emma's heart nearly stopped. There, sitting in a wheelchair but looking alert and healthy, was her mother. Emma's sister stood behind the wheelchair, pushing it slowly forward. But what took Emma's breath away was her mother's smile. It was the biggest, brightest smile she had ever seen. "Emma," her mother called out. Trying to stand up from the wheelchair, Emma dropped her bag and ran to her mother. Falling to her knees to hug her tight. "Mom, I was so scared. I thought you were really sick." Her mother stroked Emma's hair, just like she had done when Emma was a little girl. "I am sick, sweetheart, but I'm not dying. The doctors found the right medicine, and I'm getting stronger every day. I just needed my daughter to come home and take care of me for a while." Emma looked up at her mother's face. She could see that her mother was thinner than before, and there were new lines round her eyes. But her mother's eyes were bright and full of love. "I missed you so much," Emma whispered. "I missed you too, darling. 5 years was too long." Emma heard familiar voices behind her and turned to see her new friends from the airport. Margaret was being embraced by 3 young children who had run to her as soon as they saw her. An older man and woman, probably her son and daughter-in-law, stood nearby with tears in their eyes. "Grandma Margaret," the children shouted. "We missed you so much." Margaret laughed and cried at the same time. "Oh, my precious grandchildren, you've grown so much. I have so many presents for you in my suitcase nearby." Tom was surrounded by his family, his parents, a younger sister, and what looked like his girlfriend were all trying to hug him at once. His father, a man who looked just like an older version of Tom, was crying openly. "Son, we weren't expecting you until next week," his father said. "This is the best surprise we could have asked for." Tom hugged his father tight. "The military gave me early leave. I wanted to surprise you." Emma saw Lucy and David rushing through the airport with their luggage. Lucy was on her phone, probably calling someone about their wedding. David was checking his watch and looking relieved. "We're going to make it," Lucy called out to Emma as they passed. The wedding is still on, but the most touching reunion was Robert's. Emma watched as a man who looked very similar to Robert approached him slowly. The 2 brothers stood facing each other for a long moment, neither knowing what to say. Finally, Robert spoke. "I'm sorry, Michael. I should have called you 3 years ago." Michael, his brother, stepped forward and hugged Robert tightly. "I'm sorry too. I've missed you so much." Emma watched all these reunions happening round her and felt overwhelmed with emotion. As she hugged her mother again, she thought about her day. The new airport rules had made traveling different, but they hadn't stopped anyone from reaching what mattered most to them. Sometimes life puts challenges in our way, but with kindness, patience, and the help of others, we can overcome. anything, every step of the difficult journey had been worth it for this moment of coming home. The end.